Good evening. My name is Lester Holt, and tonight on Nightly News, we begin our show with an important consumer alert. Fish has quickly become one of the #1 sources of protein recommended by nutritionists, and many home cooks are beginning to feature fish as the star of their quick and healthy meals. It's high in protein, low in calories, and stuffed with vitamins, minerals, and healthy fats that lower the risk of heart disease and improve cognitive aptitude. And while more plates highlighting pink salmon rather than red meat may be better on the heart, the world's oceans, lakes, and rivers are feeling the strain. Overfished waters and a diminishing supply of certain wild-caught fishes have reintroduced farm-raised fishing across the globe. Of course, farm-raised fishing has its downfalls, such as the fact that many studies have found that in farmed fish, they have high levels of PCBs, a potentially carcinogenic chemical. How does farm-raised fish compare to wild-caught? Tonight we answer that question, explaining to you why, when in the store and deciding which fish to buy, that it is wisest to choose the wild-caught fish, for now at least. As oceans become more and more overfished and the guidelines for farm-raised fish become stricter, the population will have to begin to rely more and more on aquaculture, which is farm-raising aquatic animals for food. We begin our story by receiving some insight from Professor and Fisheries Specialist Cornelius Gordon. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Gordon. A widely asked question that many viewers are wondering about is the exact difference between wild-caught and farm-raised fish. What is it?
Surely, Lester. Wild-caught insinuates fish that were caught using traps, nets, divers, or hand lines, whereas farm-raised fish are nurtured in tanks or enclosures explicitly for food.
How much of the fish we eat or see in markets is farm-raised versus wild-caught?
Well, that can vary greatly, depending on where you live and the type of species you're talking about. Oftentimes, shrimp are farm-raised, whereas in many areas, salmon are usually wild-caught. In a lot of places, and with growing aquaculture numbers, the number of farm-raised to wild-caught fish, especially salmon, is virtually equal.
Well, which one is healthier, wild-caught or farm-raised? In other words, when you go to the store to buy your fish, which one do you buy, farm-raised?
Well, that's a bit of a tougher question. Many studies suggest that eating fish, regardless of whether it is farm-raised or wild-caught, is better than eating no fish. But I do strongly recommend being cautious about international farming-raised products, because other countries have different standards and practices. For example, there's a situation in China where fish farms were placed next to pig farms, and pig manure was leaking into the water. The fish were exposed to that bacteria, not to mention that they were using antibiotics. You don't want antibiotics in the fish supply. There have also been studies that hint that wild-caught fish have higher levels of omega-3s, or the very healthy fats in fish. This occurs because farm-raised fish aren't exposed to algae, the producer of omega-3s. Currently, fish farmers are making a conscious effort to grow algae in ponds as fish food, although many studies have pointed towards the wild-caught fish. Another study suggested that farm-raised fish had lower levels of mercury than wild-caught fish. The counter for that argument would be that it is still well below the unsafe consumption line. Either way, the answer to the question at the moment is that wild-caught fish is better to eat, but as overfishing becomes more of a problem, and fish farmers are breeding much safer crops, aquaculture will become more prevalent in the seafood industry.
And is there any negative environmental effect of wild-caught fishing?
Of course there are. Overfishing is a serious problem that we face today, and our oceans have basically reached their limitations as far as many different fishes. This is the main reason for the rapid development of fish farms. Not to mention, wild-caught methods aren't necessarily the most carbon-friendly, especially when driving the catch of the day to the faraway market. These, obviously, are the environmental advantages of farm fishing, but many do not know that raising fish in pens can have environmental effects too. For example, shrimp farming is responsible for more than half of all mangrove loss. Also, the diet of farmed fish is wild-caught, ground-up small fish, contributing to overfishing as well. Government regulations can significantly help with overfishing, and consumption in moderation is always the guideline I go by.
Is there any other chemistry that can explain why wild-caught fish are safer to consume than farm-raised fish?
Certainly, Lester. A study done by the AAAS has shown that organochlorine contaminants, such as polychlorinated biphenyl, or PCB, DDT, dioxin, toxaphene, and dieldrin concentrations were consistently and significantly higher in farmed salmon than those in wild salmon. Negative effects of these organochlorides can include a loss of sensation around the mouth, hypersensitivity to light, sound and touch, dizziness, tremors, nausea, vomiting, nervousness, and confusion.
Dr. Gordon, again, thank you so much for your time. We are now traveling to the restaurant of 3 Michelin star renowned chef Francesco Duomo and his restaurant Osteria Francescana. Hello, Lester. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here to discuss the fish. Thank you, Francesco. Thank you as well for having me. Now let's get into the good stuff. What type of fish do you use to prepare your excellent 3-star caliber meals? A wonderful question, Lester. I'm so glad you asked. In here at Osteria Francescana, we use salmon and we also use sea bass to prepare the best meals in the world. We use salmon because it's a nice pink flesh. We do not use farm raised, we use wild caught out in the Mediterranean. Salmon and sea bass, the best fish, I believe, are not good farm raised because wild caught is a lot better, a lot meatier, a lot nicer, delicate flavor. And also, it is a lot less likely to have contaminants, pesticides. I have done lots of research on this topic, and it is very, very good to have wild caught salmon and sea bass. And what's so much better, what's so much safer about wild caught versus farm raised? Because I know a lot of restaurants use farm raised. What's so much better about wild caught to you? Well, to me, the main thing is the omega-3. In wild caught fish, the omega-3 they have from the algae is guaranteed, no questions asked. But in the farm raised, you have to make sure that you're getting the best. You make sure you're getting the omega-3s. Also, I saw a study done by the AAAS, and it said that it had organochloride contaminants in the fish, and that does not happen in wild caught. And it's very healthy. It's much while both healthy, I feel much safer serving my trustworthy clients with the wild caught salmon and sea bass. Thank you so much for your time, Francesco. As always, great to see you.